Hi friends, welcome to Teacher Therapy. My name is Miss Trish, and I want to make a video today that is probably going to be a little bit controversial to non-teachers, but if you are a real life teacher or you aspire to be, you probably can relate to this at some level. I'm going to talk about one of the major reasons that teachers end up quitting, and that is student behavior. And let's just kind of call them bad students. I know that that's totally not allowed in teacher land, that you would get raw egg yolks thrown at you if you said that in a staff meeting. But hey, you know what? We're in teacher therapy, so we can be real here. So let's talk about what it's like teaching Gen Z, the little youngins that we have these days, and let's talk about some specifics that just really makes it difficult to teach in this climate, in this time period. So I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer here. Of course, this is not about all students. There are some wonderful kids out there and some wonderful parents and wonderful families, and there's plenty of sweet, shiny YouTube channels that will talk about that aspect of it. But I want this to kind of be the nitty-gritty, the real truth that doesn't really get talked about that much amongst teachers and just all around. Okay, let's see. Do I have any other disclaimers? Yes. This is not about the current group of kids I'm teaching. I am still in the classroom. This is my 7th year. And oddly enough, I have one of the best groups of students that I have ever had in my teaching career. So I just don't want anybody that runs across this to think that I'm talking about them or their kid. I'm kind of compiling this as action research over the past 7 years, all piled into one. So disclaimers over, let's jump in. All right, so I have noticed that it seems like this generation of kids lacks some really basic values that make the world go around. Let's talk about some of the specific ones. I would say a glaring obvious one that creates millions of more problems is basically a lack of respect for authority. I think even when I was in school, from the late 90s through the 2000s, there was still a sense of basic respect for teachers. If a teacher asked you to do something, you would go ahead and do it. And I was in a mix of schools. I switched schools all the time. I think I attended about 13 different schools before 12th grade. So I really moved around a lot, and it was pretty consistent. I went to some schools in really great neighborhoods and great areas and some kind of rough schools. But even in the rough schools, there was still just a really basic respect for authority, respect for teachers. Again, if a teacher asked you to do something, it wasn't a huge war. Kids just did it. That is absolutely not the case today. Now, I have some theories about why this is, which leads me into the next not so great character trait that I'm noticing among our little Gen Z friends. It is entitlement. Oh my goodness, entitlement. And I'm so sorry to say this, but I think a lot of it comes from parenting. I think in yesteryear, again, kids were taught to respect teachers. If a teacher called home and said that you were bad, your butt was in trouble. Now, I am not even playing with you. Kids are like, call my mom. I want you to call my mom. And the truth is, because they've been talking about you to their parents, there's been dinner conversations about you, and kids are smart these days. They know they're bad. So they're going to tell their parents all about you before you can get to them and paint a whole huge picture in their parents' heads about what a monster you are, so that by the time you call, they are ready for you. They're ready for you. So yeah, entitled kids with parents that don't really respect teachers, and they teach their kids to not respect teachers. Okay, let's see here. Also, oddly enough, if I had $1 for every time I had a kid tell me, my mom said I didn't have to do that assignment. My mom said I could turn it in late. My mom said I can go to the bathroom whenever I want to. My mom said I don't have to tuck in my shirt. Like, again, with this general lack of respect for authority, it's just the most basic rules are considered to be up for debate. This is kind of a this year story. I had a kid's parent complain about the scent of my wall plug-in in my room this year and suggest that I use vanilla instead. Like, it's everything from silly, ridiculous things like that to really important things about how you teach your lessons, which books you choose to read. It just goes on and on and on. There's this weird little conspiracy going on a lot of times between parents and kids against teachers, and it doesn't create a healthy climate for anybody, because if you really think about it, what's going to happen when these kids grow up and go to work and they have a boss that, doesn't have a lavender scented wall plug-in? what is going to happen when these kids do have rules one day for their job that they do need to tuck in their shirt. Mommy cannot save them at that point. Mommy cannot say to the boss, well, my mom said I don't have to do this. Well, you're going to be living in your mom's basement if that's the case. So I don't mean to get too feisty, but anyway, the entitlement is just an epidemic. Okay. All right. Next is very little work ethic. In the olden days, they'd call that lazy, just lazy. Every single year that I've been teaching, homework has been some kind of nightmare battle. And it doesn't matter if I said, okay, read for 20 minutes a night, or if I had them write like a paragraph a night. I've negotiated, I've gotten fun internet programs that kids can do to try to make it better. I feel like I've done everything under the sun to try to make homework something that is doable but yet useful for kids. And every single year, I just have all kinds of problems. So this year, about 2 months in, I completely gave up on homework. I was like, I'm not gonna make this the hill that I die on for the next 6 months of my year. And so, yeah, just the concept of doing work is a huge problem for this generation. And they just tend to complain about assignments, anything. They want a reward for everything. Everything is like, oh, will we get candy if we do that? Like, what are we going to get if we do that? And it's just kind of crazy. Also, I've noticed that these kiddos do not really understand the concept of a deadline or timeliness. And some of that gets into some issues with something new called standards-based grading, which that can be a whole video all by itself. But a lot of, you may not know, a lot of schools don't have traditional A through F grades anymore. A lot of schools have switched over to a system where it's basically impossible for kids to fail because they have 3-letter grades, either meeting, working toward meeting, or not meeting. But even if you're not meeting the goal, that doesn't mean anything. You don't fail. So that has been in place at 3 out of 4 of the schools that I've taught at. So that's just another thing that's more systemic that may not completely be the kid's fault, but again, just really basic work ethic skills and values that previous generations had and taught their children. It seems to be completely and mysteriously lacking in this generation. All right, next, just rude. And this one probably seems a little petty and silly. And I am originally from Texas, so maybe this is where this little peeve of mine comes from. But I have noticed across schools, like, kids don't say good morning anymore. And it's not just like, oh, like I'm sitting at my desk, I don't know, answering an email or something, and a kid walks in and they don't say good morning. It's literally like I'm at the door standing there like, good morning, Billy. And Billy's just like, and keeps walking. And sometimes, you know, if I'm in a salty mood, I'll just follow the kid and just be like, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, tell me good morning, good morning, good morning. And finally be like, good morning. But yeah, just like basic. In the olden days, you greeted people when you walked in the room, and you especially greeted people if they greeted you first. But weirdly enough, it's really weird, this generation does not seem to have a lot of basic manners. Yeah, another problem is kids just flat out ignoring their teachers. I have a ton of kids that will just, if they get upset or flustered, they will completely ignore me. Like, they won't look at me. They will not answer back. They'll turn their back toward me. Just rude behavior. Behavior that I don't think a lot of us would have dreamed of having when we were these kids' age. Yeah, okay. Obviously, going along with that is the amplified problem of rudeness, which is defiance. These kids have no problem arguing back, talking back, yelling, screaming at teachers, sometimes cursing at teachers, sometimes physically hitting, biting, assaulting, throwing things at teachers in serious circumstances. But it's way more widespread than you would ever believe if you're not a teacher. Okay, so again, going along with that, defiance, not understanding the concept of rules, wanting to argue about absolutely everything. Kids feeling like they're a crusader for every rule in the book and that they're somehow a hero if they're fighting the system against every rule that a teacher has. And also wanting a detailed reason for why on everything. And I've taught every grade between 4th grade and 8th grade, and this is sort of true across the board. Of course, as the kids get older, they want to argue more and know why more. But I see this, you know, even with kids as young as 4th grade, just really, really struggling to understand that, you know what, sometimes the person in charge has rules and they have reasons for them, and they don't have time to do a 25-minute breakdown and then a 45-minute debate about every rule and procedure. It just gets exhausting. It gets really tiresome. And then if you add parents weighing in on all of it to the mix, it just becomes impossible quickly. Opinionated is another one. I think it may be sort of the culture that they're growing up in where, you comment on everything, whether it's like Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or whatever the kids are doing these days, just they have a comment and an opinion about everything and they feel really, again, entitled to share that with you. So if you're doing this lesson, they might be like, this is stupid. This is boring. The other teacher did it this way. You could really do it this way. And as a quick side note that, again, could be another video, I have seen this mindset actually fostered among administration at certain schools. I have had administrators sit me down with parents and kids, I promise you, and actually tell the kid to give me suggestions about how I should teach and what I'm doing wrong in the classroom. I have had administrators pull in a group of students and ask them their opinions and questions about how do you like this teacher? What is she doing well? And just think about sort of what an unhealthy mindset that can be and how much unhealthy power that could be for children. They're normally not going to wield it well at such a young age. That's just too much to give a child, and it really robs them of the opportunity to just learn how to respect authority and to follow rules. That's what I feel about that issue. And going along with that, I'm going to try to end this so that this doesn't go on forever. I would say that with Gen Z kids and their parents even, there is a huge mob mentality. I think because of the interconnectedness with social media and really social media, a tiny issue can blow up overnight like that. Something tiny can happen in class. A kid goes and tells their parents, messages a few friends across the board. Those moms message their parents, and it's World War III by tomorrow morning. And it's something truly tiny, but you can be battling the after effects of that all year long if you get the wrong people upset, depending on what kind of school you're at. And ooh, do I have some stories about that. But it's a massive problem. And at the end of the day, a lot of teachers run into this. Obviously, we are not taught about this in teacher school. We are not given realistic methods to deal with these problems in teacher school. And goodness gracious, these issues are not addressed in most schools. Every school that I've worked at 4 different schools over the past 7 years, charter school, public school, private school, teachers are not allowed to bring this up. It is just the weirdest thing. You will be practically blacklisted if you ever talk about problems with student behavior or parent behavior. You will literally get publicly scolded at the kind of schools that I've been at if you bring this up. So then teachers are sort of left powerless. They're left, if they're imagining things, they're left, of course, taking all the blame and internalizing it, because a lot of times that is what administration wants. They want the teacher to feel at fault and responsible for all of these things. And sadly, a lot of these administrators have not been teaching in the classroom with this generation in the past 15, 20 years. And I would say probably even in the past 10 years, things have radically changed just with social media alone. And just, so much has changed, you all. So I just really kind of wanted to do an expose of student behavior really quick. And please comment below if you have had similar experiences, if you feel like you've found successful means to deal with it, if you are successfully overcoming it. But at the end of the day, at least 50% of all first-year teachers are quitting, and 50% within the first 5 years are quitting, and record numbers of teachers quit last year. So I think at some point somebody is going to have to come to terms with the effect that student behavior is having on teachers and on the classroom and on society as a whole. So that was my little thing for tonight. I hope you guys have a great day tomorrow. Toodles, please subscribe and comment below. Good night for now.